It does not begin with Dinah, though she is here. It begins with earth itself. The ground lies heavy in Georgia, 1842. The smell of damp soil rises sharp and bitter after rain. Clay clings to spades and shoes, thick and unrelenting. Silence here is not absence, but pressure, as if air itself turns to clay, thickened over ears, mouths, skin. A spade waits, edge glinting faintly by lamplight. Cloth draws tight in preparation, rags looped, garments smoothed until they rustle against silence. Window shutters slam closed by night wind, sudden like warning. Inside, voices rise and fall, but outside, between earth and timber, silence holds. Soil is constant, unseen, patient. It does not rage, it endures. Beneath feet are deposits of what has been pressed down, blood drops, tears dried, tools rusted, hinges buried. Ground swallows all, yet stores everything. The earth is ledger deeper than ink can scratch. And Dinah will come to know soil, not only as burden, but as agent. The question is not if the ground can kill, it is whether silence itself can bury. Georgia stretched humid in harvest season. Fields bore swollen crops, cotton whitening rose like ghosts at dusk, corn cobs bulging and rustling slick in wind. Houses strained at their seams, white columns trimmed with garlands, porches hung with swinging lamps. The big house glowed with festival preparation, lamps buzzing loud with oil smoke, mosquito clouds falling over glass chimneys. Doors, swollen by heat and storms, jammed against thresholds. Hinges screeched when forced, wood splintered at edges softened by rain. In every corner, signs of excess. Servants rushing, wreaths hung, arrangements placed, all hemmed in by order. The ledger scrawled in office bore marks of season, harvest figures, prices, debts half erased, names ink-stained and smudged. One page bore wet blot, left careless, bleed of ink obscuring who had gathered how much. Yet ledger stood heavier than Bibles, the scripture of property. Quarters lay huddled nearby, timber sagging, moss-climbing walls, doors hung crooked. Hinges rust let doors lean, groaning when moved. Lanterns in their spaces burned low, smoke trapped near beams, filling lungs. Cornmeal dust lingered in crevices, coating cloth spread on boards as makeshift tables. Ground around bore deep ruts. Wagons pressed grooves into wet earth. Bare feet imprinted soft soil, prints filled later with water when rain fell. Soil pooled them, held them long after steps moved away. The ground remembers, always. Festival neared, planters laughed, invited neighbors. Their lights glowed, while quarters sank in half dark. Abrupt noise from great house-masked silence of cabins, but silence pressed still, thick, heavy, clay-like. Festival meant display for one side, fatigue for the other. In this setting, acts would unfold. Every hinge squeak, every blot of ink, every footprint pressed into damp soil participated. Houses adorned with wreaths could not conceal weight pressing beneath them. Dinah moved through corridors, silent as shadow. Hands folded, cloth smoothed, linen pressed warm out of irons. She lowered eyes as expected, but her gaze carried weight. Lamps shimmered on her face, ember glow brushing cheekbones, briefly revealing something harder than resignation. Her breathing slowed when days pressed longest, rhythm studied, deliberate. Each inhale a count to keep silence steady. Each exhale an inward entry in ledger no overseer saw. She watched her mistress close, saw gestures repeated, snapping cloth in scorn, lifting chin with rehearsed authority. Dinah said nothing, but silence was her language. Silence was a tally, one humiliation, then another, folded into her inward pages. She remembered lashes delivered to others, losses endured. She carried them as cloth absorbs sweat. Linen folded was not just linen, it was symbol of precision expected, punishment if undone. Each fold memorized also counted. Stillness became armor. With eyes steady, face expressionless, she bore witness long past cruelty's moment. She let silence press heavier until it defined her presence. Servants whispered rumors, plans half-born. Dinah answered with gaze only, but gaze was ledger enough. Her sorrow hardened to resolve. By watching, by counting, she prepared. Stillness hid fire beneath. Silence cloaked her, protected and sharpened her. The mistress did not wield whip. Her punishments wore elegance like silk hem, dragging across floor. She humiliated in performance, withholding food at table before others, tearing carefully folded linen to nothing. Cain tapped thresholds like judge, summoning silence to follow. Her breath bore tobacco, sharp, staining words. She ordered with tone clipped as snapped stick. Even silence broke under her, commanded to bend and crack. Ledger pages bore her involvement, notes scrawled quick with quill scratching. Her hand guided cruelty's account with ease, striking name with stroke, subtracting ration with flourish. Her cruelty was never careless. It followed ritual. Windows flung open for humiliation to be made visible beyond, doors left wide so quarter might overhear. She orchestrated silence breaking beneath command so all witnessed her rule. Dinah endured these rituals directly. When Mistress gestured, it was always performance, meant to sting through display. Dinah folded cloth again, breathing rhythm steady, gaze unreadable. Repetition made ritual brittle. The greater the mistress rehearsed, the more predictable each cruelty became. Dinah listened, tallied. Cane taps became countdown. Ledger quills scratching became notations she would remember. Each cruelty entered another line in the silent book she alone kept. As Harvest Festival drew near, signs appeared. Lamps guttered though oil was clean, smoke blackening glass, filling quarters acrid. Dogs whined at nothing, refusing scraps. Corn sheaves toppled through stacked secure, stalks pattering on earthen floor. Windows rattled shut by sudden gust, despite still air. Shutters slammed, echo-clapping silence. Neighbors whispered portents. Rumors carried dusk to dusk. Names murmured but never confirmed. Was it spirits? Was it the land uneasy with what was to come? Silence deepened after each tale, heavy against walls. Festival's approach felt less celebration than warning. Omnipresent, hush-gathering wait. Illness spread subtle first. Mistress staggered faint after rising, pressed cloth to brow. Dizziness persisted, yet she dismissed as heat, swamp vapors. Then fainting returned. Cough followed. Physicians traveled lane, polished canes tapping step. They entered with formulas, smelling of camphor, muttering fever, bad air, blood imbalance. Remedies decisive only in failure. They prescribed bleedings, tonics. Mistress worsened. Stairs creaked at night under her unsteady steps. Servants heard, counted each falter. Lamps guttered as she passed, flames wavering, shadows stretched long. Dinah noted illness, not with shock, but with steady silence. She counted measures. Time Mistress could stand before leaning, breaths between coughs. She wrote not on paper, but inwardly. Each decline entered as omen. Others gossiped spirits, curses. Physicians dismissed again. Yet rhythm persisted. Sicknesses spread and subsided irregularly across house, as if ledger unseen was writing balance. Dinah interpreted as soil's pull, the earth already summoning account. Silence gathered thicker, heavy as clay. Failing body became signal not of weakness, but of earth's readiness to accept weight. Every cough measured against hush, every stumble etched into ledger. To Dinah it was foretelling. The night of the harvest festival swelled with noise far from the quarters. Music drifted from the big house, fiddles rasping, drums beating, laughter washing out into humid dusk. Lanterns blazed along porches, their oil smoke clouding insects away, their glow marking festivity. Yet down near the quarters, silence pressed heavier. It was there Dinah's resolve hardened, token by token. From her pocket she withdrew a kerchief folded twice, corners squared, clean but frayed. Once just garment, tonight become vow. Folded cloth in her palm steadied her. She touched also the bent spoon, dulled by years of kitchen service, reshaped by hand into something to dig at soil or lever at stones. Ordinary, yet transformed. Against her chest she carried rosemary sprig, not only for scent, but for its memory of funerary use, slipped silently among hair strands. Coiled rope she tucked beneath garments, scratch of hemp grazing her waist. Each token bore resonance. Inside walls, revelry muffled, glasses clinking, chair legs scraping. Outside, cicadas whirred. Dinah measured her breathing in rhythm, not to calm, but to count. Each inhale a preparation, each exhale a tally. 20 before she would rise, 10 before step down corridor, 5 before moving across ground unseen. Counting guided her silence into controlled momentum. Festival drums beat, masking smaller sounds. Doors to big house pushed open by guests rattled hinges, music spilling. This cover was gift. Within cover, Dinah's silence sharpened. So, the hour drew closed. Kerchief folded, spoon bent, sprig of rosemary catching faint rose-green scent, rope wound tight. Tokens gathered, silence within aligned with silence pressing fields. The threshold crossed. The moment to act belonged not to noise, but to clay. No spectacle marked beginning. Dinah guided Mistress outward, voices lost, reasons unrecorded. Mist spread faint through fields, shrouding outlines. They passed outbuilding where iron hinge squeaked loose at doorframe, echo faint. Spade sliced earth with dull thud, tearing silence thick as clay. Each shovel load lifted slow, dropped aside with sigh. Cloth dragged rough across Dinah's hand as she wiped sweat. Breath drawn deep, exhaled, measured. This was not grave prepared by custom, no coffin placed neat. It was pit opened with each scoop steady, as if counting names. First mound, one tally. Second mound, another. Rhythm built, indistinguishable from prayer recited without words. Ground sighed as opened, smell of damp earth lifting sharp, rich, bitter. Soil once walked across, now parted. Silence surrounded, neither resisting nor warning, only ever pressing, oppressive yet complicit. Dinah's breath slowed, her counting steadier. No cry punctured process. Each motion deliberate, each tally entered in silence. Soil itself listened. The pit became enclosure. Mistress lowered, covered not with scream, but with earth. Music from distance bled across night. Fiddles, laughter, masking muffled breath swallowed quick by clay. Soil pressed back, tamped by Dinah's palm, hand flat against damp weight. Palm struck rhythm into earth, each tamp measure counted, like name recited. Weight thickened, silence sealed. Shutter rattled in big house, sudden gust shaking window pane, unnoticed by revelers but carried toward quarters like sign. Still Dinah pressed final layers, tamped edges smooth. Above, earth closed seamless, near indistinguishable, as though field itself conspired concealment. Silence pressed on surface, greater than noise of festival. Dinah's gaze steady, body still. Ledger closed inwardly, written without script. She turned, blending into dark corridor of cabins. Music persisted, yet ground beneath had claimed secret. Morning bore whispers. Mistress absent, neighbors murmured. Some said fever seized her, claimed overnight. Others hinted tracks faint in soil, soon washed by dew. No record dared name Dinah. Ledger page left blotched, space where entry might have been explained struck through. Courthouse mutterings short-lived, rain dripping on stone steps as ink smudged, quills halted. Church bell tolled muffled, refusing clarity. Official story became silence. In quarters, silence settled heavier. Fear pressing, but also shield. Soil preserved what page denied, witness deeper than archive. Years layered dust over truth, yet fragments surfaced. Spade rusted, unearthed near riverbank. Iron edge eaten brown. Children recited rhyme. She who breathed the clay, gone away. Adults hushed them, but rhyme endured, skipping mouth to mouth. Archivists scribbled notes in margins, some erased by editors. Half lines surviving faint, ink smudged. Tales flickered of woman folded beneath ground, smoke from candles curling as if carrying story upward. A hinge found rusting in soil added shape to whisper. Fact melted into ash, ash into oral fire. Yet ember of tale smoldered still. Reckoning does not resolve in verdict. Courts never declared, ledgers never confessed. But silence does not lessen. It presses across years. Fields changed, quarters burned later, but soil, where pit once opened, remained heavy after rain. Shutters still creak in winds as though to recall night they slammed. Kerchiefs folded still in memory keep shape of vow. Dinah's act spoke not through confession, not through noise. It spoke in silence continuing, in ground remembering beyond generations. Justice may not be measured in verdicts, not in proof, but in breath withheld, in soil pressed close. Reckoning smolders always, heavy as clay laid over chest. The ground remembers, and though names fade from paper, silence does not forget.